Welcome back, fellow seekers of the supernatural, to another spine-chilling episode of Hallowed Hauntings. I'm Alex Hartley, your guide into the unknown, broadcasting from the haunted heart of New England.
And I'm Samantha Greene, or just Sam for short. I'm here to dig deep into the eerie and the inexplicable, coming to you from the sunny yet surprisingly spooky West Coast. Together we explore the mysteries that lurk in the shadows, uncovering stories that send shivers down your spine.
Today we're diving into a topic that's both fascinating and downright terrifying: haunted dolls. These seemingly innocent playthings have a way of capturing our imaginations and haunting our nightmares.
Absolutely, Alex. Dolls have been a part of human culture for centuries, but what happens when they become vessels for something sinister? Why do these inanimate objects have such a hold on us? And what's the truth behind the tales of these haunted figures?
In today's episode, we'll unravel the history and origins of haunted dolls, digging into why these objects are often seen as creepy or cursed. We'll discuss some of the most infamous haunted dolls from around the world, like Robert the Doll and Annabelle. Each of these dolls has a story that's sure to make you think twice about what's lurking on your shelf. So, stay tuned as we delve into the eerie world of haunted dolls. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell on our YouTube channel. Follow us on TikTok for some behind-the-scenes spooks, and visit our blog and shop at hallowedhauntings.com. Let's dive into the eerie origins and rich history of haunted dolls. Throughout human history, dolls have held a unique cultural significance. These miniature representations of people have served roles far beyond simple toys. But Sam, have you ever wondered why dolls seem to captivate and sometimes terrify us so deeply?
Absolutely, Alex. Dolls have been with us for thousands of years, crossing the boundaries of cultures and civilizations. They've been found in ancient tombs and temples, used in rituals and superstitions. It's fascinating and a bit creepy how something so small can hold such powerful meanings.
Exactly. For instance, in ancient Egypt, dolls were placed in tombs to accompany the deceased in the afterlife. These weren't just toys, they were believed to serve practical and spiritual purposes. The Egyptians crafted these figures with care, imbuing them with roles in the world beyond.
And it wasn't just the Egyptians. In ancient Greece and Rome, dolls were often used in magical practices. They were not just playthings, but tools for invoking spirits or casting spells. Imagine a time when a doll wasn't just a toy, but a conduit for mystical energies.
Moving forward through history, the art of doll making evolved significantly. By the Middle Ages, dolls were becoming more lifelike, and by the Renaissance, they were exquisite pieces of craftsmanship. But even as they became more refined, their association with the supernatural persisted.
That's right. Dolls transitioned from religious artifacts to children's toys, yet their connection to the mysterious lingered. For many, these objects retained a sense of otherworldliness. A great example is the European practice of creating poppets, small figures used in folk magic and witchcraft.
And let's not forget about early reports and legends of haunted dolls from various cultures. These stories often describe dolls moving on their own, whispering secrets, or even causing harm to those around them. These early tales laid the groundwork for the modern concept of the haunted doll.
One such legend comes from Japan, where the Okiku doll, named after a young girl who passed away, is said to have hair that grows. This doll, still kept at a temple in Hokkaido, draws many visitors who are both fascinated and frightened by its supposed supernatural properties.
These stories are more than just spooky tales. They reflect deep-seated beliefs about life, death, and what might lie beyond. And as we'll see in the next section, some dolls have become infamous worldwide for their eerie, haunted histories. Let's get into the meat of the matter. Why are dolls so often perceived as creepy or even haunted? What's your take on this?
Great question, Alex. It's fascinating how something as innocent as a doll can evoke such strong feelings of unease. Psychologically, dolls tap into deep-seated fears and cultural narratives that have been with us for generations. One big factor is the concept of the uncanny valley.
Ah, the uncanny valley. For those who might not be familiar, this term describes the unsettling feeling we get when something looks almost, but not quite, human. Think of a doll with lifelike eyes and expressions. It's close enough to being human that it triggers our discomfort. It's like our brains are saying, this looks real, but something's off.
Exactly. Our brains are wired to recognize faces and human features, and when something like a doll doesn't quite meet our expectations of how a human should look or move, it creates a sense of unease. This effect is amplified in low lighting or shadows, making dolls particularly creepy at night. Have you ever walked past a doll at night and felt like its eyes were following you?
Oh, definitely. It's like they're just waiting for you to turn your back. And let's not forget the cultural reasons. Dolls have been part of human culture for thousands of years, often playing roles in rituals and superstitions. In many cultures, dolls were used as effigies or in magical practices. This historical baggage adds to their mystique and creepiness.
Absolutely. For example, in some African cultures, dolls are used in rituals to represent spirits or ancestors. In Europe, during the Middle Ages, poppets, small dolls made to represent people, were used in witchcraft to cast spells. These cultural associations with magic and the supernatural only enhance the perception of dolls as potential vessels for something otherworldly.
It's interesting how these associations persist even today. Modern horror films and books have only added to the lore. Movies like Child's Play with Chucky or Annabelle from the Conjuring universe exploit these fears to great effect. They tap into the deep-seated discomfort and amplify it with sinister storylines.
And let's not forget real-life stories. Take the case of Robert the doll, who was given to a young boy named Robert Eugene Otto in the early 1900s. According to legend, the doll would move on its own, cause disturbances, and was even blamed for misfortunes in the Otto household. Today, Robert the doll resides in a museum, and visitors claim that disrespecting the doll leads to bad luck. It's a perfect example of how a simple toy can become an object of fear and fascination.
Speaking of real-life examples, I remember reading about the Okika doll in Japan. This doll, which is said to have hair that grows, resides in a temple in Hokkaido. The story goes that the doll was possessed by the spirit of a young girl, and over the years, its hair has continued to grow despite being trimmed regularly. It's another case where cultural beliefs and personal experiences blend to create a compelling, if not terrifying, narrative.
These stories illustrate how our psychological reactions, cultural backgrounds, and personal experiences all play into the haunted doll phenomenon. It's a potent mix that keeps us both terrified and intrigued. But what do you think, Alex? Is it all just psychological, or could there be something more to it?
Well, Sam, while the skeptic in me leans towards psychological explanations, I can't help but wonder if there's more at play. Sometimes, the sheer volume and consistency of these stories make you question whether there's something we're missing. Could these dolls somehow tap into energies or forces we don't fully understand?
That's a tantalizing thought, Alex. It's this very blend of skepticism and open-mindedness that keeps our explorations so engaging. For our listeners out there, what do you think? Are haunted dolls just a trick of the mind, or is there something genuinely supernatural at play? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
Let's dig a bit deeper into the role of dolls in folklore and horror stories. Why do you think dolls have such a prominent place in these tales?
It's a great question, Alex. Dolls have been central figures in folklore for centuries. In many cultures, they're seen as more than just toys. They can be vessels for spirits, protectors against evil, or, in some darker tales, tools of witchcraft and curses. This rich tapestry of beliefs has certainly woven a deep sense of mystery and fear around them.
Take voodoo dolls, for instance. They're perhaps one of the most infamous examples. In popular culture, these dolls are depicted as tools for inflicting harm through sympathetic magic. Even though this portrayal is a simplification and distortion of actual voodoo practices, it's left a lasting mark on our collective psyche. The idea that a small, human-like figure can control or influence someone from afar is deeply unsettling.
And it's not just folklore. Horror stories and urban legends have taken these fears and amplified them. Think about the story of Robert the doll, which we'll discuss in detail later. Here's a doll that supposedly moved on its own, caused mischief, and even brought bad luck to those who disrespected it. Stories like these fuel our fears and keep us up at night.
It's fascinating how these tales spread and evolve. And speaking of evolution, let's talk about the impact of media and movies on the perception of haunted dolls. Do you remember the first time you saw Child's Play with Chucky?
Oh, absolutely. I was probably way too young, and it scared the daylights out of me. Chucky is the quintessential evil doll, brought to life through a mix of dark magic and modern technology. That movie and others like Annabelle from the Conjuring series have cemented the image of the haunted doll in popular culture.
These movies play on our deepest fears and amplify the creepy factor to 11. They take something familiar and twist it into something terrifying. It's a powerful formula because it's based on a blend of the uncanny valley effect, historical lore, and our own childhood experiences with dolls. They're not just scary, they're unnervingly close to being real.
That's a great point. And let's not forget personal anecdotes and stories. Everyone seems to have a creepy doll story, whether it's a family heirloom that seemed to move on its own, or a toy that just gave off bad vibes. These personal experiences add a layer of authenticity and immediacy to the fear. Have you ever had an experience like that, Alex?
Actually, yes. When I was a kid, we had this old porcelain doll that belonged to my grandmother. It had these piercing blue eyes that seemed to follow you around the room. I swear, there were nights when I'd hear faint whispers coming from its direction. Of course, it could have been my imagination, but it felt very real at the time. What about you?
I had a similar experience with a clown doll my parents got me for my birthday. It wasn't haunted, but it was creepy as heck. I remember stuffing it in the back of my closet because I couldn't stand the way it looked at me. It's funny how these experiences stick with us, shaping our perceptions of dolls and feeding into the larger cultural narrative.
Absolutely. These personal stories, combined with folklore and media portrayals, create a potent mix that keeps the creepy doll phenomenon alive. But is it all just psychological, or is there something more to it? That's the question we're here to explore.
Exactly, Alex. And for our listeners out there, what's your take on haunted dolls? Do you have any personal stories or theories? Share your thoughts with us in the comments.
Now, let's travel back in time and delve into some of the first reported cases of haunted dolls. It's fascinating to see how these early stories have shaped our modern understanding and fears surrounding these eerie objects. Sam, do you have any early cases that particularly stand out to you?
Absolutely, Alex. One of the earliest and most intriguing cases is the story of Let Me Out, a doll that's said to be over 200 years old. Found in Australia in the 1970s, Letta is believed to have been crafted in Eastern Europe. The doll's owner reported that it would move on its own and even cause strange occurrences in their home, like objects being misplaced and an overwhelming sense of dread.
Let Me Out is a great example. The doll's name itself, said to come from the doll's whispered words, "Let Me Out," adds to its eerie reputation. The current owner claims that the doll is possessed by the spirit of a child who drowned. This story has been passed down and has grown in detail and horror over the years, making Letta a staple in the haunted doll lore.
Then there's the case of the Pulau Ubin Barbie. In the 1990s, a man in Singapore found a Barbie doll on a grave in Pulau Ubin, an island off the coast. The doll was believed to be placed there by a grieving father who lost his young daughter in a tragic accident. Locals say the doll has supernatural powers and brings good fortune to those who honor it.
That's a poignant yet eerie story, Sam. The Pulau Ubin Barbie doll became an icon, and people started visiting the grave to leave offerings. It shows how these early cases aren't just about fear, they're also about memory, loss, and the ways we cope with grief. But what about documented reports, Sam? How have early records contributed to the legend of haunted dolls?
Early documentation plays a crucial role in legitimizing these stories. Take the case of Pupa the doll, which dates back to the 1920s. Pupa was owned by an Italian family and passed down through generations. The doll is said to have moved on its own and changed expressions. What's compelling here are the detailed accounts kept by the family, documenting each strange occurrence.
Yes, and Pupa's history is well documented, adding credibility to the claims. Families recorded instances of Pupa moving and even appearing in different locations within the house. This level of documentation provides a tangible connection to these legends, bridging the gap between mere superstition and recorded phenomena.
Another fascinating case is the Crying Boy paintings. Although not a doll, these paintings of a tearful child were mass-produced in the 1950s and 60s. They were believed to curse anyone who owned them, leading to a series of unexplained fires in the owners' homes. The phenomenon was widely reported in newspapers, adding a layer of media influence to the lore of haunted objects.
The Crying Boy paintings are a perfect example of how media can amplify fear and superstition. These early cases, Let Me Out, Pulau Ubin Barbie, Pupa, and the Crying Boy highlight the blend of personal experience, cultural significance, and media amplification that fuel the legends of haunted dolls.
Exactly, Alex. It's these stories that set the stage for the infamous haunted dolls we'll be discussing in detail later in this episode. They remind us that while the fear of dolls might seem irrational, it's deeply rooted in history and personal experience.
Now, Sam, let's dive into one of the most infamous haunted dolls in the world, Robert the Doll. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live with a doll that supposedly comes to life?
Oh, definitely, Alex. Robert the Doll is a case that gives everyone the creeps. Let's start with his origin and background. Robert was created by the Steiff Company in Germany, known for their high-quality, lifelike dolls and teddy bears.
That's right. In the early 1900s, the doll was given to a young boy named Robert Eugene Otto Gene to his friends and family in Key West, Florida. The doll was named after him and quickly became his constant companion. But this wasn't just any ordinary childhood toy.
Exactly. The story goes that young Gene developed an unusual attachment to the doll, treating it like a living entity. He even insisted that the doll could speak. Friends and family reported hearing Gene having conversations with Robert, only it seemed like the doll was responding in a different voice.
And it didn't stop there. Neighbors claimed to see Robert moving from window to window when no one was home. Objects would be found in disarray, and Gene's parents would hear unsettling giggles. Gene himself often blamed the doll for mishaps, saying, "Robert did it." This doll was not just a passive plaything, it was a source of fear and fascination.
The Otto family eventually moved out, and Robert was left in the attic of their home. But even there, stories of his eerie behavior continued. The new owners reported strange occurrences like footsteps in the attic and a child's laughter echoing through the halls. It seemed wherever Robert went, trouble followed.
Today, Robert the Doll resides at the East Martello Museum in Key West. Visitors are advised to be polite and ask for permission before taking his photo. Those who don't often report experiencing bad luck, accidents, and even illnesses. The museum receives letters and emails from people apologizing to Robert for disrespecting him during their visit. It's as if the doll holds a grudge.
It's fascinating and a little terrifying how a simple doll can inspire such fear and reverence. Robert's story raises so many questions. Is it all just psychological? Are people projecting their fears onto an inanimate object? Or could there be something more to it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Personally, I lean towards a combination of psychological influence and the power of suggestion. When enough people believe in something, that collective belief can create real experiences, at least in our minds. But I can't completely rule out the possibility of something supernatural at play here. What do you think?
I'm with you, Alex. While the skeptic in me wants to attribute these incidents to the human tendency to find patterns and assign meaning, the sheer number of consistent reports makes you wonder. There might be forces at work that we don't fully understand.
And what about you, listeners? Have you ever encountered something you couldn't explain? Do you think Robert the Doll is truly haunted, or is it all just a series of coincidences and overactive imaginations?
Robert the Doll certainly sets the stage for our exploration of haunted dolls. But there are many more out there with equally chilling stories. Stay tuned, because next, we'll be diving into the tale of Annabelle, a doll so terrifying she inspired a series of horror films. This is one you won't want to miss.
All right, Sam, we've covered the chilling tale of Robert the Doll. Now, let's talk about another infamous haunted doll that has terrorized countless people and inspired a whole series of horror movies, Annabelle. What's her story?
Annabelle is a case that's both fascinating and terrifying. This doll isn't your typical porcelain figure. She's a Raggedy Ann doll. Her story begins in the 1970s when she was given to a nursing student named Donna as a birthday gift from her mother.
Donna and her roommate, Angie, soon started noticing strange things happening. The doll seemed to move on its own, from one room to another. At first, they thought it was just their imagination or that maybe one of them was moving her and forgetting. But then things got weirder.
Yes, the doll began leaving notes on parchment paper, something neither Donna nor Angie had in their apartment. The notes would say things like, "Help me," or "Help Lou," referring to Angie's fiancé, Lou. This is where it started getting really creepy.
And it didn't stop there. Lou had a particularly disturbing encounter. One night, he woke up from a deep sleep, paralyzed and in a cold sweat. He saw Annabelle slowly crawling up his body until she was staring him in the face. He blacked out, and when he woke up the next morning, he was certain it wasn't just a nightmare.
Lou also reported a violent incident where he felt a burning sensation on his chest. When he looked, he found bloody claw marks that seemed to have been made by some sort of animal. The marks healed unusually fast, leaving no trace. This incident prompted Donna and Angie to seek help.
That's when Ed and Lorraine Warren entered the picture. The Warrens, renowned paranormal investigators, concluded that the doll wasn't possessed by a child's spirit as Donna and Angie initially believed. Instead, it was being manipulated by a demonic entity that was using the doll to get closer to them.
The Warrens took Annabelle and placed her in a glass case in their occult museum, where she remains to this day. They perform regular blessings to keep the evil at bay. Interestingly, the case has a sign that reads, "Warning, positively do not open."
Visitors to the museum have reported strange feelings and experiences around Annabelle. There's even a story about a young man who mocked the doll and died in a motorcycle accident shortly after leaving the museum. His girlfriend claimed they had been laughing about the doll just before the crash.
Annabelle's story raises a lot of questions about the nature of evil and the supernatural. Are these just coincidences, or is there something more sinister at play? Personally, I think the consistency of these reports suggests that there's something we can't fully explain.
I agree. It's hard to dismiss so many detailed accounts as mere coincidence. The Warrens' involvement adds a layer of credibility, given their extensive experience with the paranormal. But it's also possible that the power of suggestion plays a significant role here. What do you think, listeners? Do you believe Annabelle is truly haunted, or is it all just a series of psychological tricks?
Absolutely, Alex. Annabelle's story is a prime example of how a single object can become a cultural phenomenon. She's been the inspiration for The Conjuring and Annabelle movies, which have brought her eerie tale to a global audience. These films have done an incredible job of amplifying her legend, making her one of the most famous haunted dolls in history.
The real Annabelle, of course, doesn't look quite as terrifying as her Hollywood counterpart. She's a simple Raggedy Ann doll, yet her reputation precedes her. Currently, she's housed in the Warren Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut, a place that's become a pilgrimage site for those fascinated by the paranormal.
That's right. The museum, founded by Ed and Lorraine Warren, is home to a variety of haunted and cursed objects, but Annabelle is undoubtedly its star attraction. The Warrens believe that the doll was manipulated by a demonic entity, and they took extensive precautions to contain her. The case she's kept in is blessed regularly to prevent any further incidents.
Visitors to the museum have reported strange experiences just being near Annabelle. From sudden feelings of dread to electronic devices malfunctioning, it seems that Annabelle continues to exert her influence. It's no wonder she remains such a compelling figure in paranormal lore.
And it's not just casual visitors who are drawn to Annabelle. She's also a significant point of interest for researchers and investigators. The doll has played a role in many of the Warrens' other paranormal cases, serving as a reminder of the potential dangers of the supernatural.
Exactly. Annabelle's presence in the Warrens' collection underscores the broader narrative of their work exploring and documenting the unknown, often at great personal risk. The doll has become a symbol of their lifelong battle against dark forces, and her story continues to captivate new generations.
Let's talk a bit more about Annabelle's role in the Warrens' other cases. She wasn't just an isolated incident. She was part of a much larger tapestry of their investigations. The Warrens often use their encounters with Annabelle to warn others about the dangers of the occult and the need for caution when dealing with unknown forces.
That's a great point, Sam. The Warrens' work with Annabelle has been documented in various books and lectures, emphasizing the importance of understanding and respecting the supernatural. They used her case to educate the public on the potential risks associated with haunted objects and demonic entities.
Public fascination with Annabelle hasn't waned over the years. If anything, it has grown stronger. Media portrayal of Annabelle in films and documentaries has kept her story alive, making her a fixture in pop culture. The contrast between the real Raggedy Ann doll and her sinister reputation adds to the intrigue, don't you think?
Absolutely. The dichotomy between Annabelle's innocent appearance and the terrifying stories surrounding her is what makes her so compelling. It's a reminder that evil can manifest in the most unexpected forms, challenging our perceptions and fears.
And speaking of perceptions, let's not forget how the media has shaped Annabelle's legend. The movies have dramatized her story, introducing fictional elements to heighten the scare factor. While this has brought her story to a wider audience, it's important to separate fact from fiction.
The real Annabelle story is chilling enough without embellishment. The consistent reports of strange occurrences, the Warrens' credible investigation, and the public's continued fascination all contribute to her enduring legacy.
So, listeners, what do you think about Annabelle's impact on our culture and her ongoing presence in the paranormal community? Do you believe her story is as sinister as it seems, or is it amplified by media and collective fear?
That wraps up our deep dive into Annabelle's cultural significance and current whereabouts. Stay tuned as we continue exploring more haunted dolls around the world. There's so much more to uncover and discuss. Alright, Sam, we've discussed Annabelle and Robert the doll. Now let's move to a haunting tale from the East, one that has puzzled and terrified people for over a century. I'm talking about the Okiku doll. What's the story behind this eerie artifact?
The Okiku doll's story begins in 1918 in Hokkaido, Japan. A young boy purchased the doll for his sister, Okiku, who was 2 years old at the time. She adored the doll and played with it constantly. Sadly, Okiku fell ill and died at a very young age.
Heartbreaking. It's said that after Okiku's death, her family placed the doll on an altar in their home to commemorate her. That's when things started to get strange. The family noticed that the doll's hair, which was originally cut in a traditional shoulder-length style, began to grow longer and longer, down to the doll's waist.
Exactly. The family was convinced that the spirit of their daughter had taken residence in the doll. They believed that Okiku's restless spirit was responsible for the hair growth. In 1938, the family moved, but left the doll in the care of the Manenji Temple in Hokkaido, where it remains to this day.
Visitors and caretakers at the temple have reported numerous strange occurrences. The most well-known phenomenon is, of course, the hair growth. Despite regular trims, the doll's hair continues to grow, which has been confirmed by scientific analysis showing that the hair is indeed that of a young child.
That's right. But it doesn't end there. There have been reports of the doll's expression changing over time, and some people claim to have seen the doll move on its own. It's not uncommon for visitors to feel an eerie presence around the doll, as if they're being watched.
There are also stories of cameras malfunctioning or photos turning out distorted when trying to capture the doll's image. It's like the doll doesn't want to be documented. These incidents have only added to the Okiku doll's mystique and fearsome reputation.
The Okiku doll is a significant part of Japanese cultural folklore now. It's a powerful reminder of how grief and loss can create lasting and sometimes supernatural connections. The story also highlights how different cultures perceive and deal with the supernatural.
Absolutely. The tale of the Okiku doll raises intriguing questions about the nature of spirits and their connection to the physical world. Is it possible for a spirit to inhabit an inanimate object? And if so, what are the implications?
Those are fascinating questions, Alex. Personally, I think the Okiku doll's story is a compelling blend of cultural beliefs and unexplained phenomena. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, there's no denying the emotional power of this story. What do you think, listeners? Could a doll really be a vessel for a spirit, or is it all just a series of coincidences and psychological effects? The Okiku doll's story is truly one of the most intriguing and eerie tales out there. It shows how deeply personal loss and cultural traditions can intertwine, creating legends that endure for generations.
And it's stories like these that keep us coming back to the world of the unexplained. The Okiku doll remains a testament to the mysteries that surround us, and the questions that may never be fully answered. Alright, we've delved into the eerie background of the Okiku doll. Now, let's explore its cultural significance and current whereabouts. This doll is more than just a spooky artifact. It's deeply embedded in Japanese folklore and spiritual beliefs.
The Okiku doll occupies a unique place in Japanese culture, particularly in the context of beliefs about spirits and the afterlife. In Japan, there's a strong tradition of ancestor worship and respect for the dead. The story of Okiku resonates because it touches on these deeply held beliefs.
Right. The notion that the spirit of a young girl could inhabit a doll is both terrifying and culturally significant. It speaks to the Japanese concept of eerie, or restless spirits that remain in the physical world due to unfinished business or strong emotional ties. The Okika doll is believed to house the spirit of the girl it was named after, symbolizing an eternal bond between the living and the dead.
This doll isn't just a relic, it's a symbol of mourning and remembrance. Currently, the Okiku doll is housed in Manenji Temple in Hokkaido. The temple monks take care of the doll and regularly trim its hair, which intriguingly continues to grow. The temple has become a place of pilgrimage for those fascinated by the supernatural.
Exactly. The caretakers at Manenji Temple perform rituals and prayers to honor the doll and appease the spirit believed to reside within it. This isn't just for show, it's a sincere effort to maintain respect and balance with the spiritual world. The doll is considered both a sacred object and a living memory of the girl, Okiku.
Visitors to the temple often leave offerings and prayers, hoping to gain favor or simply to pay their respects. The story of the Okiku doll has been passed down through generations, maintaining its place in folklore and continuing to captivate people's imaginations.
Now, let's talk about some of the scientific investigations that have been conducted on the Okiku doll. You might think that the growing hair could be easily explained away, but it's not that simple. Several studies have been conducted to analyze the hair, and it's been confirmed that the hair is indeed human, specifically that of a young child.
That's right, the scientific analysis has only deepened the mystery. How could a doll's hair grow if it's made from the hair of a deceased child? There's no scientific explanation for why the hair continues to grow, which only adds to the doll's eerie reputation. Some scientists have speculated about environmental factors, but nothing concrete has been proven.
This ongoing mystery has led to various theories. Some suggest that the spirit of Okiku continues to manifest through the doll, causing the hair to grow as a sign of her presence. Others believe it could be a phenomenon we simply don't understand yet, a blend of the supernatural and the unknown.
It's also worth noting the rituals and practices performed at the temple to honor and appease the doll. The monks believe that these ceremonies are crucial to maintaining peace and preventing any malevolent activity. These rituals often involve prayers, offerings, and the meticulous care of the doll's appearance, particularly the hair.
The care and respect shown to the Okika doll reflect a broader cultural perspective on the supernatural. In many ways, it's about maintaining harmony between the living and the spirits. The rituals are not just about the doll, but about a deeper understanding and respect for the unseen forces at work in the world.
So listeners, what do you think about the Okiku doll? Is it a touching story of a family's love and loss, a mysterious supernatural phenomenon, or perhaps a bit of both? Share your thoughts and theories with us.
The Okika doll remains a powerful testament to the enduring nature of folklore and the mysteries that continue to elude scientific explanation. It challenges our understanding of the world and reminds us that there's much we don't know about the intersection of the physical and spiritual realms. We've covered some truly eerie dolls so far, but now let's turn our attention to Mandy the doll. This one has a fascinating history and a chilling reputation. Sam, what can you tell us about Mandy's origins?
Mandy's story begins when she was donated to the Quesnel Museum in British Columbia in 1991. The woman who donated her claimed that she was experiencing unsettling phenomena at home, like hearing a baby crying in the night, even though there were no babies in the house. This activity seemed to stop once Mandy was removed from the home.
That's right. The doll is believed to be over 100 years old, possibly made in England or Germany. Her age and origin add an extra layer of mystery, as we don't know much about her history before she arrived at the museum. The museum staff quickly noticed that Mandy wasn't an ordinary doll.
Exactly. From the moment Mandy arrived at the museum, strange things began happening. Staff members reported feelings of unease when they were near the doll. Objects around Mandy would mysteriously move or disappear, only to turn up in odd places later. Some even claimed to hear footsteps when no one else was around.
The most unsettling incidents involve the sound of crying. Visitors and staff alike have reported hearing what sounds like a baby crying when they are near Mandy. This is particularly disturbing considering the doll's eerie appearance, her cracked face, and lifelike eyes seem to follow you around the room.
One particularly chilling story involves a staff member who locked Mandy in a room overnight. When they returned in the morning, the room was a mess. Papers scattered everywhere, objects knocked over. It was as if someone, or something, had a tantrum while locked inside.
And it's not just the staff who experience these things. Visitors to the museum often report feelings of dizziness, nausea, or an overwhelming sense of sadness when near Mandy. Some had even claimed to see her eyes blink or her expression change. It's hard to dismiss these accounts as mere imagination when so many people report similar experiences.
There was also an incident where a photographer tried to take pictures of Mandy for a museum exhibit. No matter what he did, his camera wouldn't work properly when pointed at the doll. The moment he turned the camera away, it worked fine. It's as if Mandy was actively resisting being photographed.
These stories raise so many questions about the nature of haunted objects. Is Mandy truly inhabited by a spirit, or is there something about her that amplifies our natural fears and anxieties? What do you think?
Personally, I think it could be a mix of both. The psychological impact of Mandy's unsettling appearance and the eerie stories surrounding her certainly play a role. But the consistency of the reports and the physical phenomena, like the crying and the camera malfunction, suggest there might be more to it than just our minds playing tricks on us.
Mandy's story is truly captivating, but let's dive deeper into her cultural significance and where she is today. Why do you think Mandy has such a strong impact on both visitors and paranormal enthusiasts?
Mandy has become a cultural icon in the realm of haunted objects, particularly because of the documented experiences and the continued interest in her eerie behavior. Her presence in the Quesnel Museum has drawn not only curious visitors, but also paranormal researchers who are keen to study her.
The museum staff have reported that Mandy's influence hasn't waned over the years. They've had to adapt to her reputation by logging incidents and being mindful of the doll's placement and surroundings. This meticulous documentation adds a layer of credibility to the stories associated with her.
That's true. The Quesnel Museum itself has embraced Mandy's notoriety, using it to educate and engage the public about the paranormal. They conduct regular tours where Mandy is a central feature, explaining both the historical and supernatural aspects of her story.
Currently, Mandy is housed in a special display case to both protect her and manage her interaction with visitors. The museum has set up specific guidelines for those who wish to photograph or interact with her, ensuring that everyone remains respectful and aware of her eerie reputation.
Visitors often leave offerings or notes, hoping to appease whatever spirit they believe resides within Mandy. This interaction highlights the doll's cultural impact and the widespread belief in her supernatural nature. Mandy has certainly become a cornerstone of the museum's collection, influencing local tourism and drawing paranormal enthusiasts from around the world.
Indeed, Mandy's influence on local tourism is significant. People travel from various places to catch a glimpse of this infamous doll, bringing attention and economic benefits to the Quesnel Museum and the surrounding area. Her story not only intrigues visitors but also encourages them to learn more about the paranormal and local history.
Let's talk about the experiences of Mandy's previous owner before she was donated to the museum. The woman who donated Mandy did so because she believed the doll was causing strange and unsettling phenomena in her home. She reported hearing unexplained crying sounds, seeing objects move on their own, and feeling an eerie presence around the doll.
These experiences were so disturbing that she felt compelled to part with Mandy, hoping that removing the doll from her home would restore peace. Her decision to donate Mandy to the Quesnel Museum has allowed these stories to be documented and shared, adding to the doll's mystique.
Since arriving at the museum, documented incidents have continued. There have been numerous reports of unexplained activity, such as objects moving or disappearing, sudden drops in temperature, and strange noises. These incidents are carefully logged by the museum staff, who have developed a system for recording and investigating each occurrence.
Ongoing investigations into Mandy's phenomena are conducted by both amateur and professional paranormal researchers. These investigations often include monitoring the doll with cameras and audio equipment, as well as conducting EMF, electromagnetic field, readings to detect any unusual energy patterns.
Despite numerous investigations, no definitive explanation has been found for the strange occurrences surrounding Mandy. Some researchers believe that the doll may be a focal point for paranormal activity, while others suggest that the stories and incidents are a result of psychological influence and heightened suggestibility.
The continuing mystery of Mandy the doll keeps her story alive and intriguing. It challenges our understanding of the supernatural and invites us to consider the possibilities that lie beyond our current knowledge.
So, listeners, what do you think about Mandy the doll's impact on local tourism and her ongoing influence in the paranormal community? Have you ever visited the Quesnel Museum? Or do you have your own theories about what might be causing these strange incidents? Share your thoughts with us.
Mandy's tale is a perfect blend of history, folklore, and unexplained phenomena. Her presence in the Canal Museum ensures that her story will continue to be told and investigated for years to come.
Absolutely, Alex. Mandy remains one of the most fascinating and mysterious haunted dolls in the world, drawing attention and sparking curiosity in all who hear her story.
All right, Sam, we've explored some fascinating haunted dolls so far. Now, let's dive into the chilling story of Peggy the doll. This one has a reputation for causing real physical distress to those who encounter her. How did Peggy come into the public eye?
Peggy's story begins with Jane Harris, a renowned paranormal investigator. Harris acquired Peggy from her previous owner, who claimed that the doll was responsible for a series of terrifying incidents. The owner reported experiencing severe anxiety, hallucinations, and even heart palpitations whenever she was near the doll.
That's right. Jane Harris, intrigued by these claims, decided to investigate further. Peggy's previous owner believed that the doll was possessed or cursed, causing anyone who came into contact with her or even viewed her photograph to experience distressing symptoms. This included headaches, nausea, and extreme fatigue.
It's fascinating how a single object can have such a profound effect on people. Harris documented numerous cases where individuals reported adverse reactions after seeing Peggy's image online. These reports weren't just minor complaints. They included severe headaches, dizziness, and even chest pains.
And it's not just physical symptoms. Many people have reported feeling overwhelming feelings of dread and sadness after encountering Peggy. Some have even claimed that the doll appears in their nightmares, leaving them shaken and fearful.
One of the most documented aspects of Peggy's haunting influence is the electronic disturbances she seems to cause. People have reported their electronic devices malfunctioning when they view Peggy's photo. Computers crash, phones freeze, and lights flicker. It's as if the doll exerts an influence over technology itself.
There was a particularly chilling incident involving a woman who watched a video of Peggy. Shortly after, she experienced a severe headache and a feeling of choking, as if someone was squeezing her throat. She later reported seeing Peggy in her dreams, standing at the foot of her bed, watching her.
Another unsettling story comes from a man who claimed that his entire family began experiencing nightmares and disturbances after he brought a photo of Peggy into their home. He initially thought it was just coincidence, but the experiences were too consistent and too disturbing to ignore.
These stories are backed by Harris's own experiences. She has recorded numerous instances where visitors to her exhibitions have felt sudden drops in temperature, sharp pains, or an inexplicable urge to leave the room when Peggy is present. The psychological and physical effects seem to be widespread and deeply unsettling.
The sheer number of reports makes it hard to dismiss Peggy's influence as mere coincidence. Whether it's a powerful case of mass suggestion or something more sinister, the experiences are real to those who have encountered her. It's a reminder of how potent the fear of the unknown can be.
Exactly. Peggy's story challenges our understanding of haunted objects. It raises questions about the nature of curses and the power of belief. Could it be that our minds are playing tricks on us, or is there something genuinely supernatural at work?
That's a great question, Alex. Personally, I think it's a mix of psychological influence and something we don't fully understand yet. The mind is incredibly powerful, and the fear of Peggy could amplify these reactions. But the consistent nature of these reports suggests there might be more to it.
Listeners, what do you think? Have you ever experienced something similar with a haunted object or image? Do you believe Peggy's influence is real, or is it all in our heads? Peggy's story is one of the most compelling and disturbing in the realm of haunted dolls. But what makes her so culturally significant?
Peggy has become a well-known figure in paranormal circles, largely due to the widespread reports of distressing symptoms from those who encounter her. She's been featured in numerous articles, documentaries, and podcasts, making her a subject of fascination and fear for many.
That's right. Peggy's reputation for causing physical and emotional distress has made her a focal point of discussion in the paranormal community. What's particularly interesting is how she's not just a passive artifact but an active participant in paranormal investigations.
Currently, Peggy is kept by Jane Harris, who uses her in controlled investigations. Harris conducts these investigations with strict protocols to ensure the safety and well-being of participants. The goal is to understand the phenomena associated with Peggy and to document any recurring patterns.
Harris's work with Peggy includes both physical investigations and online interactions, where people can view Peggy's photo or video and report their experiences. This approach has expanded our understanding of how Peggy affects people and has provided a wealth of data on her influence.
Speaking of online interactions, let's dive into that a bit more. What do you think it is about viewing Peggy's image online that causes such strong reactions, Alex?
That's a great question. There's a theory that the mere sight of Peggy triggers a psychological response in people who are already sensitive to the paranormal. This response can manifest as headaches, nausea, or even panic attacks. But the consistency of these reports suggests there might be more than just psychology at play.
Exactly. It's fascinating to see how Peggy's influence transcends physical proximity. People have reported severe symptoms just from looking at her photo online. Harris has conducted experiments where participants are asked to view Peggy's image and document their reactions. These experiments have shown that a significant number of people experience similar symptoms, which points to a possible pattern.
Yes, and the patterns observed in these experiments are intriguing. Common symptoms include headaches, chest pains, and intense feelings of dread. Some participants have even reported electronic disturbances, such as their devices malfunctioning or lights flickering.
These patterns suggest that there might be something about Peggy that interacts with people on a level we don't fully understand yet. Whether it's a form of mass hysteria, a psychological phenomenon, or something genuinely supernatural, the consistency of the reports is hard to ignore.
It's also worth noting that Harris takes these symptoms seriously. She ensures that anyone participating in her experiments is fully aware of the potential risks and has access to support if they experience severe reactions. This ethical approach helps to legitimize her findings and provides a safe framework for exploring Peggy's influence.
Absolutely. Harris's meticulous documentation and ethical considerations make her investigations some of the most credible in the field. The data she's collected over the years offers valuable insights into the nature of haunted objects and the ways they can affect us.
Now, let's talk about some specific online interactions and experiments conducted with Peggy. One of the most interesting aspects is how people from different parts of the world have similar experiences when viewing Peggy's image. What do you make of that?
It's a fascinating phenomenon, Alex. The fact that people from various cultural backgrounds report similar symptoms suggests that there might be a universal element to Peggy's influence. This could be related to common psychological triggers or perhaps something more enigmatic.
In one notable experiment, Harris invited volunteers to view a live stream of Peggy for a set period. Participants were asked to record their physical and emotional responses. The results showed a significant number of viewers experienced headaches, dizziness, and a sense of unease.
Another interesting pattern is the recurrence of electronic disturbances. Many participants reported that their devices malfunctioned while viewing Peggy's image. These incidents included sudden shutdowns, screen flickers, and unexpected software errors. While some might attribute this to coincidence, the frequency of these reports is compelling.
Harris has also analyzed the commonalities in the reported symptoms. She's found that certain individuals, particularly those who are more sensitive or have prior paranormal experiences, are more likely to report severe reactions. This suggests that Peggy's influence might be amplified in people who are already predisposed to sensing the supernatural.
It raises the question of whether Peggy is truly haunted, or if she acts as a catalyst for latent psychic abilities in certain individuals. Could it be that Peggy's presence somehow enhances people's sensitivity to paranormal phenomena? It's a controversial idea, but one worth exploring.
Definitely. The ongoing experiments and analyses of Peggy's influence continue to provide valuable insights into the nature of haunted objects and the power of belief. They remind us that there's still so much we don't understand about the intersection of psychology, culture, and the paranormal.
So listeners, what do you think? Have you ever experienced something unsettling just from looking at an image? Do you believe Peggy's influence is purely psychological? Or could there be a supernatural element at play? Share your thoughts and experiences with us.
Peggy the doll remains a captivating subject for both skeptics and believers. Her story challenges our perceptions and invites us to consider the many ways in which the unknown can impact our lives. We've delved into some spine-chilling stories of haunted dolls, but now it's time to bring in some scientific skepticism. Let's explore the psychological explanations behind these phenomena, starting with pareidolia. Sam, what can you tell us about how pareidolia contributes to the perception of haunted dolls?
Pareidolia is a fascinating phenomenon where our brains see patterns in random stimuli, often resulting in seeing faces or figures where none exist. This can significantly contribute to the perception of haunted dolls. Our brains are hardwired to recognize faces, so even slight imperfections in a doll's face can make it seem more lifelike, and therefore more eerie.
That makes sense. It's like when people see faces in clouds or the man in the moon. With dolls, especially those with detailed features, pareidolia can trick our brains into thinking the doll is watching us or even moving. This can be particularly unsettling when we're already primed to believe the doll might be haunted.
Exactly. And this leads us to the role of suggestion and expectation in paranormal experiences. If someone tells you a doll is haunted, you're more likely to interpret any unusual occurrence as evidence of paranormal activity. This is known as the power of suggestion.
It's similar to the placebo effect in medicine. If you expect to see or experience something paranormal, your mind can create or amplify those experiences. For example, if you're told a doll can move on its own, you might interpret any slight shift in the doll's position as supernatural, even if it's just gravity or someone accidentally bumping into it.
And it's not just about what you're told, it's also about what you expect to happen. If you walk into a room expecting it to be haunted, every creak and shadow can take on a sinister meaning. Your brain is on high alert, and you're more likely to notice and remember anything that fits the narrative of a haunting.
That's a great point. Our expectations shape our perceptions. It's like when you're watching a scary movie and you start hearing every little noise in your house. Your mind is primed for fear, so it finds things to be afraid of.
This brings us to the influence of childhood experiences and memories with dolls. Many of us have had dolls as children, and those early experiences can deeply influence how we perceive dolls later in life. If you had a favorite doll that you believed could protect you, or a doll that scared you, those feelings can resurface when you hear stories about haunted dolls.
Absolutely. Dolls often play significant roles in our childhoods, whether as beloved toys or objects of fear. These early associations can linger and shape our adult perceptions. For instance, if you had a creepy doll that you thought moved on its own as a child, you might be more inclined to believe in haunted dolls as an adult.
It's fascinating how these early experiences can leave such a lasting impact. It's not just about the dolls themselves, but about the emotions and stories we attach to them. Childhood is a time when our imaginations run wild, and those powerful memories can influence our beliefs and fears for years to come.
So, listeners, how do you think your childhood experiences with dolls influence your perception of haunted dolls today? Have you ever had a doll that you thought was alive or had a mind of its own? Share your stories and let us know how your past shapes your views on the paranormal.
Understanding these psychological explanations doesn't necessarily take away from the experiences themselves. It adds a layer of complexity and helps us appreciate the powerful interplay between our minds and our surroundings.
Exactly. And while science can explain a lot, it also leaves room for the unknown. The mind is a powerful tool, and sometimes the scariest stories are the ones we create ourselves. We've discussed how pareidolia, suggestion, and childhood experiences can influence our perceptions of haunted dolls. Now, let's move on to cognitive biases and the psychological impact of fear and the unknown. Sam, how do cognitive biases shape our interpretation of strange events?
Cognitive biases are mental shortcuts our brains use to process information quickly, but they can often lead us to incorrect conclusions. One of the most relevant biases here is confirmation bias. This is where we tend to notice and remember information that supports our existing beliefs and ignore evidence that contradicts them. If you believe a doll is haunted, you're more likely to notice anything that seems to confirm that belief.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like when you're convinced something is true, you start seeing evidence of it everywhere, even if it's not really there. For example, if you think a doll is haunted, you might attribute a creaky floorboard or a flickering light to the doll, rather than considering more mundane explanations.
Exactly. Another important cognitive bias is the availability heuristic. This is when we rely on immediate examples that come to mind to make judgments. If you've heard many stories about haunted dolls, those stories will be at the forefront of your mind when you encounter something strange, making it more likely you'll interpret it as paranormal.
And let's not forget about the bandwagon effect. This is the tendency to believe something because many other people believe it. If a lot of people say a particular doll is haunted, you're more likely to believe it too, even if you haven't experienced anything yourself. It's a form of social validation that can strongly influence our perceptions.
That's a great point, Alex. These cognitive biases can create a sort of feedback loop, where our beliefs are constantly reinforced by selective attention and social influence. It's a powerful reminder of how our brains can sometimes trick us into seeing patterns and connections that aren't really there.
This brings us to the psychological impact of fear and the unknown. Fear is a primal emotion that can significantly alter our perception. When we're scared, our brains go into high alert, looking for threats everywhere. This heightened state of awareness can make us misinterpret ordinary events as something sinister.
Right. Fear can amplify our senses and make us hyper-aware of our surroundings. This is a survival mechanism that's meant to protect us, but it can also lead to false alarms. When you're already on edge, a simple noise or shadow can seem like confirmation of a haunting.
It's similar to how watching a horror movie can make you jumpy. Your mind is primed for fear, so you start seeing and hearing things that aren't really there. This is especially true in dark or unfamiliar environments where our senses are heightened and our imaginations run wild.
The fear of the unknown is particularly potent. We have a natural aversion to things we don't understand, and this can make unexplained phenomena seem even more frightening. Dolls, with their lifelike features and potential for movement, tap into this fear perfectly. They straddle the line between animate and inanimate, making them inherently unsettling.
So, listeners, how have your own experiences with fear shaped your perceptions of the paranormal? Have you ever found yourself more jumpy or anxious in situations where you expected something spooky? Share your thoughts and stories with us.
Understanding these psychological factors helps us see how our minds play a crucial role in interpreting strange events. It doesn't necessarily debunk paranormal experiences, but it does add a layer of complexity to how we understand and interact with the world around us.
Exactly. It's fascinating to see how much our perceptions can be influenced by our minds. Whether you believe in the paranormal or not, these psychological insights offer valuable perspectives on why we experience things the way we do.
And that wraps up our discussion on the psychological explanations behind haunted dolls. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into the world of the unexplained and continue to explore these fascinating phenomena. Moving on to another critical aspect, mental health. Mental health conditions can significantly impact how people perceive and interpret their experiences. Conditions like anxiety, depression, and sleep disorders can make individuals more susceptible to believing in paranormal phenomena.
Absolutely. For instance, sleep paralysis, a condition where a person is temporarily unable to move or speak while falling asleep or waking up, often comes with hallucinations of figures or presences in the room. This can easily be misinterpreted as a paranormal encounter.
Similarly, anxiety can heighten a person's senses and make them hypervigilant, leading to the misinterpretation of normal sounds or movements as something supernatural. Depression can also play a role by affecting a person's perception and making them more prone to experiencing feelings of dread or fear.
People with these conditions might also experience pareidolia more intensely, seeing faces or figures in inanimate objects more frequently. This heightened sensitivity can make dolls, already eerie to some, seem actively menacing or haunted.
It's also important to consider the impact of cultural and familial beliefs. If someone grows up in an environment where belief in the supernatural is strong, they may be more likely to attribute strange experiences to paranormal causes, especially if they're already dealing with mental health challenges.
This is where understanding and empathy come into play. When investigating paranormal claims, it's crucial to consider the mental and emotional state of the person reporting the experience. This helps in providing a comprehensive and compassionate approach to understanding their experiences.
Now, let's look at historical cases of mass hysteria and how they might relate to stories about haunted dolls. Mass hysteria, also known as collective hysteria, occurs when a group of people collectively experiences fear or anxiety, often leading to physical symptoms and irrational behavior.
A classic example is the Salem witch trials, where fear and superstition led to widespread panic and the persecution of many innocent people. In more recent times, we've seen mass hysteria manifest in various ways, such as the dancing plague of 1518, where groups of people danced uncontrollably for days.
These cases show how powerful collective belief and fear can be. When people start believing that a doll is haunted, stories and experiences can quickly escalate. Social media and the internet can amplify these stories, leading to a form of modern-day mass hysteria where fear and belief in the paranormal spread rapidly.
This is particularly relevant with haunted dolls. Once a story starts circulating about a doll being haunted, it can trigger a wave of similar reports and experiences. People who might not have been affected before can start to experience symptoms simply because they've been exposed to the idea.
And it's not just about fear. Mass hysteria can also be driven by excitement and a desire for attention. In some cases, people might exaggerate or fabricate experiences to fit in with the group or gain recognition. This doesn't mean their experiences are any less real to them, but it does show how social dynamics can influence what people report.
Understanding these historical cases helps us see the patterns in how stories about haunted dolls spread and gain credibility. It underscores the importance of critically examining these stories and considering the broader social and psychological context.
So listeners, have you ever been caught up in a wave of collective fear or excitement? How do you think mass hysteria might play into the stories of haunted dolls and other paranormal phenomena? Share your thoughts and experiences with us.
By examining these scientific explanations in historical cases, we can better understand the complex interplay of psychological, environmental, and social factors that contribute to the enduring fascination with haunted dolls.
Exactly. While the supernatural makes for great stories, it's also important to ground our understanding in science and history to get the full picture.
We've taken quite the journey today, diving deep into the eerie world of haunted dolls. From spine-chilling stories of dolls like Annabelle and Peggy to the scientific explanations that debunk some of these myths, it's been an eye-opening exploration.
These stories captivate us because they tap into deep-seated fears and fascinations. Whether it's the creepy notion of a child's toy coming to life or the unsettling feeling of being watched, haunted dolls evoke powerful emotions.
For me, the most intriguing part is how our own minds play such a significant role in these experiences. Cognitive biases, fear, and even our childhood memories all contribute to how we perceive these phenomena. It shows just how complex and fascinating the human mind truly is.
I agree. It's also fascinating to see how environmental factors and mental health can influence our experiences. The fact that many haunted doll stories can be explained by scientific principles doesn't make them any less interesting. In fact, it adds another layer to our understanding of these mysterious events.
And let's not forget the power of storytelling and collective belief. Historical cases of mass hysteria show how quickly and profoundly our perceptions can be shaped by those around us. Haunted dolls are a perfect example of how folklore and fear can spread, evolving into something that feels very real.
Exactly. And that blend of reality and imagination is what makes these stories so compelling. They challenge us to question what we know and what we believe. They remind us that there are still many mysteries in the world, some of which might just be in our own minds.
So, listeners, what do you think? Have you ever had an experience with a haunted doll or another object that you couldn't explain? Do you believe in the supernatural, or do you lean more towards scientific explanations? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And if you have any personal stories, please share them with us. Your experiences and insights add so much to our understanding of these phenomena. You can reach out to us on social media or through our website.
Thanks for joining us on this spooky adventure. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep exploring the unknown. Until next time, keep those lights on and those minds open.
And remember, whether you believe in haunted dolls or not, the stories they carry are a fascinating part of our cultural tapestry. We look forward to hearing from you. Stay safe and stay intrigued.